Hey everybody, welcome to What's Up Wednesday. I know that I don't do a lot of What's Up Wednesday videos on safety topics, but that's based on feedback from people who say that generally they prefer leadership and life lesson type of presentations. But this week, I want to talk about something that a lot of us, I would say, deal with on a somewhat regular basis, and that is a safety program on a multi-employer work site. Now, I just did some expert witness work on a case where, and this isn't the first time that I've run into this, but I reviewed kind of a top-down approach of a safety program on a site based on an incident that occurred. And traditionally, I would say that the way that safety requirements on a project work start like this. An owner submits a contract to a construction management firm or a general contractor, and within the contract, they have expectations related to safety. From there, the general contractor has a safety program and they have a safety expectations in their contracts to their subcontractors, which they impose upon them, again, contractually. And in addition to that, generally the subcontractors and their second, third, fourth, fifth tier subcontractors beneath them will submit their programs back up. So from the top down, you have contract expectations related to safety that are kind of disseminating down through the layers of contractors. And on the flip side, you have contractors from the bottom up submitting their safety programs and their site safety plans to be approved by whoever their contract is written with. And what I've encountered many times and several times recently, again, reviewing some incidents, is that oftentimes these expectations and the programs, they don't mesh. And what ends up happening is there end up being deficiencies really in the effectiveness of the practice of the safety program on the site. And my ideas or recommendations based on lesson learned kind of go like this. I think what needs to happen more often than not is whoever the controlling entity is on the site. Now, generally, that is either going to be a construction manager. In certain industries, it could be an OEM, an original equipment manufacturer, such as a wind turbine manufacturer would be a good example, or it'll be a general contractor or balance of plant, BOP contractor. But whoever has site control should really make sure that, number one, that all the programs align and that there is kind of a uniform set of guidelines and standards across the project that everybody on the project understands very clearly. The rules of the project are specific to the project, and they may vary a little bit from the day-to-day programs of each individual contractor. But where we run into trouble a lot of times is when there are variances, variables, gaps between expectations. It might be that a subcontractor has a program that maybe has more significant requirements than a general, or vice versa. But those gaps can start to create problems. And more importantly, they can create a ton of confusion. So ultimately, I think that from a success standpoint, whoever the controlling entity is on the site needs to develop the program for the site, and everybody on the site needs to adopt that program. When new people come on site, they need to go through an orientation program that's crystal clear on what the expectations are. And you need to point out that, hey, your company may have this requirement, but on this site, we don't use ladders. We tie off at 4 feet, whatever it might be. And you need to make it crystal clear that these are the expectations. When the person goes through orientation, and when I say person, every worker on site, any vendor who will be working on site, people coming in, delivering on a regular basis, they should go through that site orientation. And maybe there's an abbreviated version for people who aren't working on site all the time. And there's an extensive version for people who will be working on the site daily. But ultimately, that orientation should result in them leaving with a set of guidelines so that they have a reference. as well as maybe an app that allows them to access the safety requirements on their phone. And then additionally, I think that the controlling entity needs to post their expectations. If it's a high rise, on every single floor where the personnel hoist ends or where it terminates and people get off on that floor, there should be postings that advertise and market the expectations on the job. But again, going back to the beginning of this message, it's really key and critical that everything aligns and that there's one uniform set of standards. Where I've investigated incidents and I found big problems in defending against suits and claims, it's a lack of uniformity between those expectations, which often lead to different types of shortcomings that are going to be utilized as leverage when something goes wrong. So think about that. Think about how you can build a more effective program. And if you are a controlling entity and you're managing a program at the highest level on a site, make darn sure that everybody's unified and aligned and collaborating on a common set of rules and standards. Hopefully you find that helpful. We'll see you next Wednesday.